my real estate career was nothing stellar. Lost 50 grand on the first flip. The second was I got this VA loan. Rates were like in the twos at that point. So we just bought a house. Classic house hack. Bought a house at super low rates in Oceanside, California. That's all we did. And the thing does great. After a couple of years, it's appreciated like 200K. We still have it today.
The military taught us discipline, it taught us leadership, but it never taught us how to really build wealth and income. This is the Active Duty Passive Income Podcast, and I'm your host, Markian, a United States Marine turned full-time real estate investor and educator. I'm bringing you the most successful military, veteran, and military spouse real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and industry experts to break down exactly how they did it, so you can too. Hey DPI, we're kicking off another episode, and this is between two crayon-eating Marines, all right? We're going to talk about all sorts of military life, mindset, some deployment stories, transitioning out of the military, because we all know that's one of the big reasons why ADPI exists, right? It's a struggle to finding, what to do when you grow up, so to speak. And we're also going to talk about just real estate and how that can be a cornerstone for your transition journey. And it can be something that helps you with your mindset. So I met Mark Brookman at our conference a month ago?
Yeah, about a month ago.
Right? Not even. And Mark, welcome aboard. I shook your hand in a couple of things you were saying, standing right there next to Thatch Nguyen, right before you guys got on stage, then after. And I was just, you could tell that we had a similar mindset about like, what does real estate and entrepreneurship help with? What is kind of like the point of all this? Because it's not like a cakewalk, right? What is the point of all this? And I immediately, and we sat down for lunch and I was like, you know what? You need to be on the podcast because the thing that I love the most is just regular military people being able to inspire regular other military people to just do what we're doing, right?
Sure.
To just find that purpose. So yeah, without further ado, Mark, what's up? Please give us a little bit of an intro of like, what your background is, what made Mark today, and then we'll go into all your stories and all the details from there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a pleasure being here. Appreciate you having me on. And what you guys are doing as a veteran, I got to see this firsthand at the ADPI conference in San Antonio. Like, I really appreciate what you're doing for the veterans. What you guys have built is pretty incredible. So kudos to you and your team. It's a pleasure to be here. But yeah,
it's all the team, man.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible team. You can feel the energy in that room. So it was a breath of fresh air. But me, like my story is not a whole lot different than a lot of veterans out there. I'm just kind of trying to get my voice out there to encourage others to do it. So I went through the Marine Corps after kind of a traditional upbringing in college. And I was just like every other Marine. Once I had made that conscious decision, I was like, all I want to do is I would just want to go to war. I just want to be like those other Marines that I see and met, and that was kind of my life for the longest time. And getting out, I'm really kind of at the turning point in my chapter. It's all about the next step here. I don't want to live vicariously through my military days. And so that's really what it's all about now is building that new chapter and continuing to lead and encourage others to kind of do the same thing, turn the page, and there's bigger things out there. So excited to dive into it.
Interesting. So yeah, I need to dive into the bigger things out there because I just recorded an episode where we were digging into that. Maybe you remember a guy, actually you were probably not there at that moment, but there's a guy that jumped up on stage the day before you guys arrived. His name was Cheyenne, and he won like our little impromptu pitch contest to help kickstart the networking. And we dove into that big time, the bigger things out there. So I want to touch on that with you because I'm always curious about that because it's almost like a delicate topic. But you were saying, if I can dive into I feel like this is going to be very military heavy, also real estate, obviously, but like because of the mindset piece that you were telling me before the show, you said something like traditional college upbringing. And then I'm assuming you did maybe ROTC or OCS or whatever the case may be. Boom, you became an officer. And what's interesting to me is I think I had a different mindset at that point, maybe than you. It sounds like you were like, you really were passionate about the war fighting aspect of it, like the literal going to war. I'll just share,
I went to the Naval Academy literally almost on a dare from my dad.
Nice.
At one point, I didn't even want to go. I just got in, and which is probably going to piss some people off when I say that, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I was kind of part of that like intense culture, because a very intense environment, truthfully, very intense environment. But like, I don't think I ever had it in my head where like, I want to go to war. But I meet a lot of Marines, especially throughout my time in the Marine Corps, that were and still are like that. So where do you think that came from? And was that the driving force for you to like kind of go through and become a Marine, or did that happen later, earlier? How does that work?
Kind of
How did that work for
came
you?
later, so kind of back up to the very beginning. I grew up in a very kind of traditional household with a lot of Asian values. So, I grew up in the 90s. So the way you were raised, especially kind of under like a traditional household, was you go to college, you get the best grades, because if you don't get the degree, like you're going to end up on the street, right? That's kind of how we were raised. And then I also got into sports. I played sports in high school, so I was almost being primed to go into the Marine Corps. I was never that kid playing GI Joe and with the poster on the wall and saying like, I'm going to be a Marine one day. I feel like everything in my upbringing kind of led me to the Marine Corps. My dad was a naval aviator in Vietnam, so the military was always in our family. I'd kind of see his medals up in the office growing up, but it was never like a prevalent part of my upbringing. It wasn't till I got into college, right? I graduated 2010, so this is the height of the recession. So I had done everything like a good boy should. Got my grades, got my degree. I was a student athlete, and all of a sudden your degree overnight is worthless. We were really the first generation where a degree didn't do anything, right? And so that was kind of the tipping point. It's like I had always kind of wanted to be in the military, but didn't quite have the guts to do it. When I found out that like I probably wasn't getting a traditional job anytime soon, that was my kind of like calling. It's like, dude, this is the time now. So as I started going into it, like watch Generation Kill and Surviving the Cut, and that's kind of where I got the juices. I was like, if I'm going to go into the military, I'm going to go all the way. I want to see how far I can go. I want to see what's the highest I can go. All I want to do is go to war. That's all I want. Like if I'm going to make that commitment, I'm going all in. I've always been like that from like 0 to 100. So that was kind of the path into the military. I was like, I'm making a decision. I'm going to war. I walked into the recruiter's office in Seattle, just off the street. And I was like, I want to be a Marine. He's like, oh, okay. They kind of do that traditional stuff. And he said, well, why do you want to be a Marine? I said, I want to go to war and I want to kill as many people as possible. And he kind of looked back. He's like, dude, we don't hear that from the officer side. Like we kind of hear like, I want an adventure and I want leadership, but like this is probably the place for you, my brother. Let's do it. So that was kind of it. I dove in head first, just walked into the street and decided to join. So that's kind of the story into the Marine Corps.
I have a similar quote that I gave my platoon commander at TBS. So we're checking in and everybody's doing their like whatever, the entrance interviews to get to know your captain, guy who's, he was also a Navy grad, but he was like infantry, like every morsel of his body was infantry. You know what I mean? Kind of guy. Yeah. And so I'm like, just, just lip full of dip hanging out there and like with the green monster, writing down stuff. And he was like, so what do you want to get out of this? And like, what's your long-term goal? Right. That's what he asked me. And I just looked at him. I was like, yeah, my long-term goal is, and this was before the current full-blown war in Ukraine, right? This was right on the cusp of like that incursion into Crimea and everything like that.
Okay.
And I was like, I want to, so I was like, I speak Ukrainian and Russian. I want to go undercover. I want to become Putin's right-hand man. I want to stab him in the heart when he's sleeping.
Yeah.
And the guy, like even the infantry guy was like, what? And I was like, because I had already been like, he was like, okay. He said, you never heard. So anyway, it's interesting because like when you're young, right out of college, like that environment really does kind of like, I don't know, it influences you. That becomes your purpose. And it's almost like the bigger the goal. I mean, it's similar in business. You have to have a big vision, right? So you want to go all in, and that's what drives you to that. So I just wanted to start off there because I think it helps us understand who you are, right? And along the way, like you had some deployments. Like what kind of, is there a story you can share from a deployment that you feel like really shaped your life today?
Yeah, it was kind of a combination of things, right? It's just like my upbringing was kind of these slow kind of milestones leading into the Marine Corps. My military career was kind of the same way. So I my first unit was 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. Um, that's your typical traditional infantry battalion. And then I got an IA after that to Afghanistan, Kabul, Afghanistan, 2016. So this is probably at the low point of our presence there, is like 5,500 troops in Afghanistan at the time. So I'm in Kabul, and they had just transitioned to this train assisted buys mission. What this was a bunch of like colonels and generals to go meet their Afghan counterparts and talk about like how you can sustain yourself. Let's buy with us through the partner force, that kind of mission. Um,
Hmm.
so what they were sorely lacking was personal protection. So the unit that I had attached to 2 years earlier, that general was killed with an insider attack. And so he was one of the highest ranking generals that had been killed in like all of the 20 years as a 2-star general. And so that kind of flipped the switch. They're like, shit, we need to protect these guys. We only got 5,500 troops here, you know, so we got to
Wow.
figure this out. And
Wow.
so
Wow.
basically, this was kind of how I understood like how other branches view the Marine Corps. Despite your MOS, like if you're a Marine that you step foot on Kabul, they're like, you are a personal protection detail, you know? So it's like, sure, great. Like I stepped on deck with the guy who was a comptroller, and they're like, you're gonna go lead convoys. And so he's doing convoys, protection convoys through like Jalalabad Highway, which at the time was just absolute suicide because that's all there was at the
So
time.
finance guy goes,
Doing PSDs
okay,
through
all right.
Jalalabad Highway, which I mean, that is just absolute suicide, and so that was my job in Afghanistan, was to protect this, at the time as a colonel, then replaced with a general, and just walk around Afghanistan and protect this guy. So during this deployment, there was an IG inspector report that came out that said corruption is the biggest threat to the Afghan mission, the NATO mission in Afghanistan, right? And so if you need any clear picture of mission creep, this was it, because it was no longer about fighting the war. It's now we're starting to funnel money through these Afghan partners, and they're giving it right to the Taliban, right? So we have a clear idea of that today,
Wow.
but that was really what was going on at the time was,
Yeah.
hey, we're giving you guys equipment, money, and it's going straight to the Taliban. So we need to figure this out. Well, the unit I had gone to, and this is the most military
Yeah.
thing ever, was the counter-corruption unit. And the reason why I got attached to that is because I had a criminal justice degree. And at the time, all these advisors were lawyers. And so like, you got a criminal justice degree, you'll go to the counter-corruption advisor unit. So I kind of got there, and they're like, all right, you're gonna be the PSD. And all of a sudden this unit is like, it is it. Like, my boss is briefing Congress and stuff like that. And he's being told to go basically tour the country to figure out what's going on. So that was kind of my job in Afghanistan. And it the it wasn't any singular event, but I got so good at identifying a single threat in the room, that kind of hypervigilance thing, because my whole mindset was like, I am not going to be the dude in charge of personal security that's going to get his general whacked. Like that's not happening. We had some hairy situations. I remember we're about to head out, and this boom comes off, like just absolute shockwave, and it was a V-bid. It wasn't a V-bid, it was a cement truck filled with explosives. They estimated like 10,000,
Whoa.
some just ridiculous amount. We thought they were coming across the wall.
Like one of those like spinny cement
truck filled with explosives that had breached the wall, detonated, and we thought that the camp was being infiltrated. So like we're in the radar, we like throw our stuff on, we're like, this shit is on. And like everyone has those like, oh shit, this is real moments, right? Because during TBS, you play war, and it's kind of cool and motivating. Like that was my like, holy shit, it just really like, get me the fuck out of here kind of moments, and at that point, like the game became real. Turns out it had blown up like a block away, so we were all good, but that was like,
but that was kind of like the shock, the real, like
this
it's
is
real thing.
real. So it was kind of a series of events where I'm like, I got to take this seriously. Like this guy is entrusting me with his life, and I can't screw this
Sure.
up. Like has to be just like over the top vigilant. You know, and we had.
Were you like? I mean, trying to imagine, like, were you like almost like a pseudo secret service, like literally walking next to this guy all the time, kind of thing situation?
Kind of, yeah. Like that. Honestly, that mission is best served probably for like an SF unit. I had a 1-star general. And to put this in perspective, the guys that were protecting 3 and 4-star generals were from the National Mission Unit, right? So it's like we were probably well out of our wheelhouse. And if something had, I think about this often, like if the shit had really gone down, I always question, like, were we actually equipped to do that? I'd like to think so, but in the case it's not, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the argument can maybe that was like at least a form of deterrence, right? Just the perception of them having that type of level of security probably did a lot of good already. So even if you felt unprepared, which I'm sure you're more prepared than 99% of the country, but yeah, no, that's really cool. Wow.
Yeah.
And what happened after that?
Well, so it was, like I said, a series of small events. We were supposed to go out to Bagram. Dominoes, right? Yeah. We were supposed to go out to Bagram, and then the flight gets canceled because there had been an insider attack. Guy clacked off a vest, killed 10 people. I think it was actually 5. 5 KIA, 5 wounded. We were supposed to be there that morning, right? Like walking exactly where the dude had clacked off the vest. And so that's where it's like, holy shit. Like we were literally that close. You know, it was just one of those act of God type things. There had been a couple times where we had gotten we had gotten plenty of INW of guys, you know, our Afghan counterparts who had ties to known Taliban that knew of our missions. So we had to cancel our missions all the time. So it was little things like that. And so it wasn't one singular event like where, you know, we got overrun and we had a bunch of people killed, but it was little events like that to where I got home and I was like, interesting. I don't think I'm okay. Like I didn't do anything. Like I never got in intense firefights. I never did this, but like I could just tell like I wasn't okay. And really the first one was I was with my, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, at a country concert. And it's so cliche. Someone lit off one of those mortar fireworks and I jumped out of my skin. I was like, holy shit, you know? And then I realized like, okay, no, I'm at a country concert. And that was really the first kind of indication where I was, something's,
I need to get this checked out.
Yeah, something's not right here. Us being in the military, we just go move on to the next thing, right? We're so good at compartmentalizing. Like, oh, bad shit happened, next, right? And we just shove it off to the side. So when I got home, I volunteered to go take reservists and train them through an ITX, right? Which is the stupidest thing because ITXs are intense. They're 29 palms. They're absolutely horrible. And it's not something you want to do right when I didn't even take post-deployment leave. I went right into it. You know, and so
was it like a Hurt Locker situation? Like you needed the adrenaline or what was it?
Something. Yeah. Like for me, like I just needed to get out there and just do more, like just keep going. Right. Cause there was always something out there. There was always something next, you know, and I couldn't sit still. So finally I was like, okay, let's take a break here. I did a degree program at UC Irvine. I almost flunked out of it. I would literally sit there in class, hear nothing. You know, I was about a bunch of academia type professors, and if they told me what to do, I'd fucking lose my mind. I'd be irritable, you know? So that was like, okay, maybe, just maybe, like, I'm not okay. Like what happened in Afghanistan, you know, though it's not, you know, newsworthy and I can't post on it and I can't share my stories about all these intense firefights, like the Navy SEAL, like there's still something going on. I'm still not okay. And I fought with that for years where I was like, I don't deserve to feel like that. Like, I didn't have a dude next to me get blown up. I didn't take an IUD. You know, I wasn't in 20 firefights a day. Yeah. You have that comparison thing like we do in the military. It's like, something's going on here.
Oh my gosh. Comparison is the thief of joy. Have you ever heard that?
Oh yeah. Yep. It's the thief of joy and it's also disguised as motivation.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. Like I tell people often, and it's almost, I'm going to be very like vulnerable. Like I cannot get rid of the guilt. And it's in this, it's that I felt like my military career was like, just not cool. Like
everyone has that.
Trust me, less cool than yours. Like 100%. I guarantee it. Like I did a detachment. I flew like what, and it's funny, like you're actually kind of helping me think what was going on in my head with like I have like sleep crippling anxiety these days. Like, and the weird thing about that is like, there's two different camps. Like anxiety is just like a made up word for, just an adult. And then the other camp is like, no, this is serious. I don't really know where I feel about it. All I know is that I used to not have that. And flying aircraft that kept breaking down, and it was a flip of a coin whether it was actually going to get up or not, and constantly checking the gauges, constantly figuring out that, and by the way, audience, everybody that's listening, you all know, like, I have the deepest appreciation for A, America, B, the military. My entire family feels adopted by this country, and the benefits that the military provides is second to none. But, with such a strong warfighting agenda creates a lot of pressure. And when your supply chain sucks and your aircraft is cannibalized all the time and you're a pilot and you're worried, like, not to mention, like, I didn't start off, I wasn't Tom Cruise. I wasn't great at flying. Like, I had to completely rewire my brain to get good enough to do it, right? And here, it's literally a flip of a coin if it's going to take off. And every other day we find issues when we're doing pre-flights, and it's like, wow, if we would have missed this little thing, we would have died.
Absolutely.
And it's like, dude, all the time. And like, eventually it just like broke me. I was like, and then there's other things going on personally and everything. But like, eventually I was just like, I don't think I can fly anymore. And so I switched over to public affairs or Comstrat, whatever you want to call it. But like, dude, like that to me still is one of the hardest things to swallow. Cause it's like, am I a quitter? Am I like, is my career just a joke? Like, so I try to be as open and honest about that as possible, because I feel like that's the way to like just accept it. And also, I also know that there's the opposite side of the spectrum. There's a lot of people that have, like, I don't know if you want to call it stolen valor or whatever, but they definitely boast how big and bad they were when in reality it wasn't that cool, right? So I'm trying to stay away as far from that as possible and just be like, this was me. Like, even my Comstrat career was in New Orleans during COVID. Dude, like, we did very little.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like part of me just feels freaking guilty, because like I was getting the same paycheck people were getting, like killing, like dying, were getting. And so it was I don't know. It was a weird place. So you're home now. You're back.
Now.
You keep doing things to kind of give yourself maybe purpose. What was it?
It was
like,
purpose, and just
where'd you go from there?
Chasing, like we as I think Marines and military in general, we're so good at chasing for the next certification, the next badge, the next tab, whatever you want to call it, right? That's what we do. We chase, and it's bred into us. It's like there's always there's a growth that's needed, because if you're not growing towards the next billet, the next deployment, right, your worth as a Marine, as a service member, goes down. Kind of like you said, there's a certain level of guilt when you compare your career to others. We're fantastic at doing that, because from day one, we're evaluated. We're literally ranked. This is the first person. The person who is not quite as good is ranked number 2. The person who is worse than him was ranked number 3, so on and so forth. Like, it's bred into us, right? And meanwhile,
yeah.
every single one of us, we're either cook, baker, candlestick maker, is part of the warfighting machine, right? We lose sight of that. We lose sight of the fact that you joined and served for 4 years. You gave up your life for 4 years to be part of a machine that at any moment could go off and fight World War III, right? That's something that you can't discount, right? And so it's great that these former dev guru guys and stuff like that are saying, like, yeah, go out and heal yourself. It gets a little lost because it's hard to connect, So I was no different, but I always ignored it, because I was like, I'm fine. I'm not like, the dude who's part of the Green Berets, or I'm not part of that dev group that's doing like all this stuff. Like, I don't deserve to feel that way, but I'm just going to keep chasing, right? So maybe that way I can be accepted, or I can reach that level. So, I get done with my degree program. I'm like, I'm going to MARSOC, right? I was a Lago.
Okay.
I was a Lago by trade, so the SUE route was out of the question, but there was still the enabler route, which is probably one of the more undersold kind of sides of MARSOC. And at the time,
can you educate on that a little bit?
Yeah,
especially for some of the different branches, or somebody who wasn't in MARSOC. Like, you said SUE versus enabler. Can you clarify that?
MARSOC really has kind of two worlds to it. You have your traditional, the badge holder, right? They got the MSOI. It's kind of like the Navy SEALs. you do critical skills operators and your special operations officers. So they go through the typical pipeline. They get assessed and selected. They go through 9 months of, at the time it was the individual training course, now the Marine Raider course. And so you become that title of, hey, I am a SOF operator. The other side that MARSOC has developed, which I think is actually pretty cool, is in the support side. There's one of the soft special operations forces, soft truths that special operations support comes from non-special operations personnel. And MARSOC has really challenged that. And they've taken all these support personnel and trained them in soft specific skills. So that way the support is tailored towards the Marine Special Operations companies. And so they are part of MARSOC. They directly attach to the MSOCs, which is an 04 command node. And you got to go through a selection process just like anyone else to get there. And you're trained and you're honed. And so that enabler side is pretty cool. It's starting to kind of take its own form and is really challenging. Like, you can be part of the special operations realm and not be the operator, because special operations, well, they have absolutely the best operators in the world. They also have the best support in the world. That's what kind of makes it special. And so I went the enabler route because Comlog and Intel are really the three MOSs that go into the enabler route. So at the time, there was a
Makes sense.
selection process. It's better now. So really, the selection process is they looked over your master brief sheet and you're like, this guy looks good. Cool. You do a PT test. You're in the company. Go off to SEER. And so, I went off to SEER and kind of went through some of these courses. Like, all right, you are now part of the Marine Special Operations company. And so I was like, this is where it's at. And I really felt at home there. Like I met some of the most just legendary people that really the GWAT generation has to offer. Like just absolute alphas that were just masters at their craft. And not just the operators, like our FAC, who is a pilot, bar none, one of the best in the Marine Corps. Our Intel guy, who is now a JSOC, one of the best just in the military period. So like we just had this special connection of just some of the most
just an A-class people.
A-class, like Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, Patriots era kind of just group. And that was the first time I had really been around that kind of environment. And it made me step it up. I was like, I can't fail these guys. Like I have to up my game and be exactly where they are, because like, I'll be damned if I'm the liability in the group. Right. So
wow. That's to me, I'm always fascinated by environments, or like, so in our cohorts, for example, how we teach our members to buy large apartment complexes, there's a couple of things we're very big on. One of them is surrounding yourself with A-class people. I'll always say, like, people will either make you or break you. Like literally, it's your greatest leverage point. It can also be your greatest downfall. Like the millions of dollars of mistakes I have made in business and in real estate are always tied to people. I can always tie it back to a person that made that downfall happen. But also, during one of my classes, I talk about how Steve Jobs, there's a lot of admirable and not so admirable qualities about the guy. But one of the things that he found out early on was that his primary job is to curate the right people to come together. So like building teams, building the right people, because he's like, what happens is A-class people are not typically used to being in an environment with other A-class people.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's real magic. And because he's like, he also gave the example of like a car, right? He's like, you can have a sports car, let's use Thatch's Revolto, right? Or I don't know, my parents' minivan that they used to have. If those two cars would go to the grocery store that's a mile away, the sports car will get there maybe half a minute faster, right? Like there's only so much that it can accomplish in that situation. But when it comes to tech, real estate, military, A-class people it's a night and day difference. It's like a 5, 10, 15, 20x multiple on the output, right? The people are just an insane leverage point. And so you're in this environment and you're now among other A-class people. And I think that's what probably allowed your A-classness to kind of actually be able to grow and shine, right?
Yeah. And it's stuck with me. And I really attribute that to kind of my success in the real estate space, because once you leave that environment, and you go to just some team like I eventually went on to Boeing, right? Where you have the widest
Mhm.
range of talents, people's personality. I mean, it's huge. So you go from the A-class all-star team to somewhere where it's just like, meh, like that's quite a shock, and that was something that was
Mhm.
difficult for me to kind of adjust with. And actually, where I found kind of those A-type personalities, those just masters of the craft, was in the real estate space. So that's kind of what drew me to the real estate space. It was when we were actually
Really?
deploying.
Okay.
Yeah, we were slated to go to Iraq. This is during COVID. Like COVID hits in March. We're supposed to deploy in July. So we're just sitting there forever because no one knows what to do. And I'm reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. This is like how so many real estate stories get started.
Classic.
So cliche, right? Like I'm sitting there reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that was where it clicked. I was like, holy shit! Like this, I've been lied to my whole life. Like this is a new way of thinking. And so throughout that deployment is really where I started kind of sinking my teeth into real estate. I started listening to Bigger Pockets, started reading up on stuff.
Mhm.
That's kind of where it all started. So it was an interesting deployment to Iraq because at that point we took over Iraq and Syria. So I'm serving both AOs at the time, trying to get my teeth into real estate, and it all kind of came together. And this will make sense eventually how it leads into real estate. But what they were lacking in Iraq and Syria was just new construction. Like they just lacked facilities. So they had a bunch of ISIS prisoners who were breaking out of the prisons. There were no team sites at all. They had all consolidated them after COVID. Partner Force had nothing. And so they just needed someone to like, we don't know what to do. So kind of what my team's job was just take literally bags of money from the government. We would take cases of millions of dollars and go hire local contractors in Syria and Iraq just to build these things, to build team sites, to build prisons and stuff like that. And it was
So,
it was
so you
wild.
started your real estate. You started your
Pretty
real estate
much.
journey in Iraq and Syria.
Yeah, my first development project was a team site way out in the desert, and I literally have this Iraqi. He's about like 5'3", and he's got like the fake Gucci jacket on, and he's got this chain. He looked like something out of like a mob movie, and I'm paying him just hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash, and he's bringing in cranes and building all this stuff. And so that was really like my first development project was in country to
Dude, you were a general contractor.
pretty much,
You were a general contractor.
And I literally did. I was like, okay, because we're really good at in the military is planning, right? I got to do this. It sets conditions for
Right.
that. And when I do this is the
Hopefully.
second, hopefully, right? Like, and so I pretty much just did that and built team sites, and that was really my job. And so that's kind of how it got it started, And meanwhile, like kind of going back to Afghanistan, it was also like a series of events that I realized, like, okay, this is actually taking its toll on me. We were probably the most kinetic unit remotely, so we would be taking out ISIS cells with ISR and just dropping bombs all day. So like you're in the talk watching Kill TV in the dark, days on end, just watching dudes get smoked, and so it's like that kind of
So you kind
wears
of
on you.
became numb to
You
it.
become numb to it. Yeah, like emotionally, you're gone, right? Because it's not normal to just watch Kill TV weeks on end, not seeing the sun.
No, I mean that's what they say about a lot of the unexpected PTSD from drone
Yes.
operators, right?
Yes.
It's just similar. It's like you're playing this very real video game, and then you go home and you kiss your wife and kids, and it's just like the dichotomy in your brain doesn't fit sometimes.
It
I'm not a psychiatrist, psychologist. This is what I'm just learning
yeah,
through
absolutely.
living.
And you're spot
Right.
on. They're finding now that it doesn't take a one singular event like a massive firefight to create PTSD. You can have these micro events over time, over a long period of time, that can manifest itself as if it were like a big traumatic singular event, right? And the reason I say that is because there are so many people that go through their military career and they're like, I don't deserve to feel bad because nothing big ever happened to me. But what they're finding out
Mhm.
that that's not the case. It doesn't have to even be in war. You can have traumatic events over time, bonus and in training, like because traumatic is unique to the individual or trauma is. So, that is something that it took me a while to learn. It's like, you may not have had the just wild career like a special operator, but you've had all these little things. In Syria, we're doing a site survey through um, a refugee camp, and it turns out it was an ISIS smuggling route. And so we actually pulled over a truck, pulling up dead kids because they were smuggling people out, and some of them would make it. And so us being the good compartmentalizer, we're like, oh, that sucks. Next, next. After a while, that stuff kind of takes its toll on you. And so just like Afghanistan, I get back from this
I
deployment.
can imagine, man.
It's fun, like, oh, I did all this cool stuff. I'm sinking my teeth into real estate. I did my first GC project in the desert of Iraq. But meanwhile, like I'm starting to just crumble, right? And I don't know what's happening. So it was really when I got back from Iraq
Wow.
is where it just started to just manifest itself and just start to spiral. And I would completely ignore it. I'm like, hey, sure, I'll go off on this training debt to get the new team spun up, right? I'll go through their workup and train them because all I was doing was just compartmentalizing. I was just running away from things that needed to be dealt with, right? And so many military members do that. I got problems, I'm going to go on the next deployment. I got problems, I'm going to go on this training, on this debt. And it just.
So is there like it sounds like it's just compounding and compounding. So like, was
Yes.
there either a breaking point, or I've heard you describe like your first property being like that bridge from your old mission to your new purpose? Like, was that what happened first? Like,
Yeah.
was there a breaking point, or was it just like you stumbled into real estate when you got back home after this, desert GC job
Yeah.
you had? And like, how did that play out? How did the bridge happen?
The breaking point really was the minute I got out. I remember like I got my DD-214, right? The Willy Wonka gold ticket. And that afternoon it came crashing down. Like I was so anxious. I'd be pacing the hallway.
Wait, why did you get out?
So yeah,
Why did you get out?
so let me back up. So my son was born probably 6 months before I got out. Enablers don't have a full closed loop career path in MARSOC. So I think they wanted me to go to like either the drill field or DCINL, which is like the Marine Corps' like installation hub. And I was like, absolutely not.
Okay.
And I had gotten enough momentum and enthusiasm about real estate where I was like, I think in the next 10 years, I can do more in real estate than I can, I had just promoted a major. So I was like, I think I can do more in real estate and do more for veterans and just the service members than I can as a staff officer, in purgatory.
No kidding. Okay.
So that was kind of the reason behind it. My son was born. So I'm getting out like, and this is the typical story. Like I had a hip surgery because I had a torn hip labrum that I had just ignored. I blew out my back, so it's just all starting to crumble down. My son's born and I get out and that's where it just like imploded.
And I'm sorry, I hate that I'm interrupting you. I'm just like, I'm trying to like get into your brain here. Cause like, dude, one thing I've learned is it's like these little, because you said like the one thing you want people to remember from this episode is the mindset, right?
Yes.
Like what was the actual internal what was the fuel you put into your engine to make this stuff happen? Like you said something in the very beginning. I circled it on my little notes here. Is you said bigger things. Was there like, let's just call it what it is. So here you are, potentially having guilt because feeling like maybe you, which I think is hilarious because my career was definitely not like illustrious, but like if you're feeling like maybe that way, and on top of that, you have maybe this other feeling that maybe there's bigger things for you out there. How did you, like for me, that I felt guilty for thinking that. I was like who am I for thinking that? Because like when I said I didn't want to fly aircraft anymore, I mean, it looked like people didn't understand me. They were like, what do you mean
You
don't want to fly gray aircraft? I said, yeah, I said this on the last episode. They're like, they're like, people looking at you, they're like, you are at the pinnacle. You know what I mean? Like you made it. You're doing the thing. I was like this Naval Academy grad, speak multiple languages, flying aircraft. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm telling you, I felt the same. Like I felt what you described at the very beginning. And it's not because I like maybe I have a superiority complex. I don't know. But like, I just felt like there was something else. at least for me, I felt like I couldn't grow and reach my full potential in what I was doing, period. Like, I didn't even have to rationalize it, I guess, to a certain point, but like, I still felt guilty for feeling that way or for knowing that about me. Like, was that something you realized after you got out, or was that part of the ingredients?
It was definitely part of
the
the ingredient. Kind of like you said, like the path forward isn't going to give me what I need, like for me, MARSOC was like, that's the all-star game, and everything else the Marine Corps had to offer, just, it didn't resonate. I was like, I can't grow. How do I take serving it with some of the best dudes at MARSOC and, rise linearly from that? So that was part of the green I was still chasing, but where it started to shift is when my son was born. I was like, I can't be a world-class warfighter and be a good father and husband at the same time. Like, I knew that about myself, like it wasn't going to happen. And so I was like, there's got to be a balance out there that allows me to be a good father. And
is that a you thing, do you think? Here's a tough question. Like, do you think that's a you thing, or is that a military thing? When you realize that both weren't going to happen the way you wanted to?
Ooh, that's a good question. I like to think, let me do the cop-out answer. It was probably both. Down in my core, like, I had the ultimate thing that I want to have on my grave is not military, or it's just that, like, I was a good father to my son, at the time son, now son and daughter, right? Like, at the end of the day, they're not going to care that dad did all this stuff in the military. They're just going to care that dad was there, right? So I always knew that was kind of deep down in me, but it was also kind of fueled by like the military, like, I got to chase the next thing, right? So like, that was where the shift started happening, right? Like, I had that deep kind of internal, like, I need to be a good father. Feel that with the military, I need to keep chasing, right? And it started to morph into what my kind of life is now. But during that morphing process, when I got out, like, to your earlier question, like, what was the breaking point? Like, that kind of, I call it that grind. There's periods of grind and flow. This was pure grind, pure breakdown before breakthrough. And this is where 10 years of just ignoring my own well-being manifested at once. So get my DD-214, like, I'm a nervous wreck. I'd walk upstairs, not remember why I walked upstairs. Someone would tell me their name, couldn't remember shit. Like, I was in just immense physical pain. Like, I couldn't function. I would pull out into the highway and not remember, like, oh shit, did I even look to see if there were cars coming on? Just I could not function, and I couldn't.
No kidding.
I couldn't put my thumb on it. Like, is this PTSD? Is this anxiety? And I'd be super irritable. I'd be yelling at my wife, and she's my son's like 3 months old at this point. And I couldn't wrap my head around, like, what is going on with my brain, my body. Like, it was such a shock to the system where I was just lost. I was like, what is going on here? Like, I can't function, and so I started doing all the traditional stuff. I went to the TBI clinic, and they're like, well, it's possible. Take these meds, and I go through their psychiatrists and psychologists, and they're like, well, sounds like you've got the traditional stuff. Take these meds, and it just, nothing was working. Meanwhile, I've gone through this traditional system, and I'm still just spiraling, just crashing. I couldn't function. And at that time, so here's a little tip for those getting out. Do not buy your first property right as you're getting out, because I had bought an out-of-town flip in Spokane, Washington, because I was able to pay for it all cash. And so that was the first investment property I ever bought, is during my just absolute grind of a spiral. I'm also, meanwhile, just no idea what I'm doing. I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, listened to a few podcasts, and we're off trying to flip a house out of town. So that was my first actual, like.
Wait, so why are you saying not to do it when you get out? Was you just saying, like, emotionally you need to give yourself some grace and some time to figure things out, or like, what was the reason for that?
Well, it may have been a gift to a curse. So I recommend to really get a handle on yourself and all the things that you've potentially compartmentalized, all your injuries. Like, you need to get good at yourself. You need to heal yourself before taking on a new endeavor. Now, you can do it like me, where you just learn the hard way and go through 18 months of pain to lose $50,000 on a shitty flip. That's one way of doing it. I would say The
Yeah.
result is what you're going to find is you need to be the best version of yourself to succeed in whatever new endeavor that you're going in, especially real estate.
It's funny. What I'm finding is that there's typically two different mindsets about this, and I don't think there's either one is wrong, because in a weird way, I believe in both. Like I'm like Orwellian doublethink. I have two different mindsets. One is slow, smooth, fast, right?
Yes.
Like you're saying, give yourself some grace. Kind of like, for example, in our cohorts, I always talk about like, you don't need to go. Your first property doesn't need to be 100-unit deal. Okay,
Yes.
like go get a 7-unit, go get a 12-unit, build some momentum, right? On the multifamily side, right? But then there's the other philosophy, which I've also done, and has also done well for me. That is, screw the whole bite the elephant one bite at a time. Just bite, just eat, just put the whole elephant in and figure out how to chew it later.
Right.
And I'll tell you, both have happened in my life, and both have helped me. I will say that chewing that much elephant, wow, what a terrible analogy. It is definitely painful.
Yeah.
But it also accelerates growth. But it might have some scar tissue. So I don't know. I think both are possible. Both are ways you can go through life. But I hear because that's what you're saying. It's like a gift and a curse. Like, you probably learned a lot very quickly in a very painful way, and it made you wiser. And you're like, boom, I'm more prepared for this crazy world out there. But at the same time, it was probably a painful 18 months.
It was, and I think that's where stuff like what you're doing, right, with veterans, if you can kind of coach people along to go through that transition a little more methodically, you can save them from just that absolute just drag your face through the mud for 18 months. But like you said, like, you do learn a lot. And so that for me is where I started learning that, like, if you apply your mindset from the military directly into real estate without doing any changes, you're not going to succeed. You need to shift your mindset ever so slightly to be successful in real estate. And so that's what real estate did for me. So once I kind of failed in that first flip, me being the air just hard-headed bastard I was like, I'm not failing at this. So I had joined a mentorship program, which was Thatched Wins mentorship program. I actually signed up during TRS. I was like, why not? And then that's kind of for me where the mindset shifts started happening, because I suddenly found myself around people who were at the best at their craft, just like Marsoc. Like, I was around people that were doing $400K a year in wholesale deals. I was around people doing new construction, 3 or 4 projects a year, and they were making millions of dollars a year. I was like, these are the people that I need to be around. I need to learn from. So
Right.
that's where the shift started happening, and that's what really drew me into real estate. It's like, there are other people, non-military, who had the same traits. They're driven, they're disciplined, they are the masters at their craft. And if you hang around with them, you're going to improve yourself just like you did at Marsoc. And so that's where my transformation started to happen. And I learned a lot doing that. I learned that, like, we as military members, our mindset is go, go, go. The next thing, the next thing, the next thing. It's always the 70% solution. And, like, screw it. You have to move fast. In real estate's very methodical, especially, like what I'm doing now, ADUs. It's a 24-month process. So you can't just hit the wall 100% every single day. It's a slow, drawn out process. And so I learned that, in order to do more, you got to do less. If you try to do everything in a single moment, you're going to do nothing. You got to be very methodical about it, but you got to use that discipline to be methodical every single day. Right. So you can see how you take what you've learned in the military and just tweak it a little bit. That's all it is a little bit of tweak. And it was real estate that kind of, like, forced me through that mindset transformation of like, okay, you do have skills from the military that no one has. We all do. I think veterans are some of the most well-primed people to succeed in real estate because of what we learned that only one organization on earth can teach you. But we just have to tweak it just a little bit, because not everything the military teaches you serves you. And so it was other things. Like, for me, it was the law of attraction. For me, it was like, if I just work harder and search everywhere for deals, I'm going to find something. And the key is just to go harder and faster. Not true. What I had to do is kind of declare, this is what I want. I got to be so clear in my mind that, like, I need to be so specific and look only at this small little box, and then I'm going to find it. Right. And
Isn't that fascinating though? Like,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite things to explain, because like, imagine my vantage, like I'm seeing just after student after student pouring in to like organization. It's like, and I see them go like from like shaky, almost like nervous, even though it could have been like a colonel in the military, right? Coming in, putting on like this, I think me and you spoke like it's the mission after the mission. Actually,
Yeah.
Mike on our team started saying that. And it's like, and what I try to explain, which I don't know if it's just the military doesn't talk about it this way. What I try to explain is that your brain is so powerful that it's like putting on, I liken it to putting like glasses on, and there's a particular lens you look through, like sharpen that lens so much, be so focused on what you want. And Rod Cleef, the guy who kind of like inspired me to go into multifamily, he talks about the reticular activating system a lot. I think he got it from Tony Robbins. But it's just like when after you buy a car, all of a sudden you see that car everywhere, and it's like, wait a second. So what I have to do is to train my brain to be disciplined and focused on what my mission is, right? And then what's going to happen is it's not magic, but what happens is other people start learning about what your mission is, and now you have like all of them almost unintentionally conspiring to connect you to that mission. And all of a sudden opportunities kind of happen. And also you'll start noticing them. Like if you have those glasses on, you'll notice that same car.
Absolutely.
As the analogy goes, you'll start, like, if you don't know, I want an ADU in Seattle, or I want to buy a house that I could build an ADU on in Seattle in this neighborhood. If you don't know that that's what you're looking for, you're not going to find the thing.
100%.
Right?
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's really cool that you're bringing that up, because I think it's very real. I think that's like it's not even a real estate moment. It's like a business moment. It's a growth moment. You realize I need to be more focused. And then it almost feels like you got to go an inch wide and mile deep, right? You got to that's how you can, because I was worried that growth, I'm gonna be honest, I was worried that growth meant like I can do more things, just like breadth, right? But it turns out I can do a lot of things in a very narrow. It's like an airstrip, right? Where an airplane, like as long as that runway's long, there's a lot of room for growth.
Absolutely.
It's just a different kind of growth than I had in my head. If that makes sense.
And it's interesting because when you kind of get on that path, you don't really know where the road leads, but it could potentially lead to other paths. So like I'm learning these things like law of attraction, and then I'm starting to realize like, if something small goes wrong, like, hey, we're delayed in permits, your military brain starts freaking out. It's like, oh my God, like we're going to die because something's going wrong, right? That's what your military brain does. And so to be kind of cognizant of what your military brain is doing helped me tons, because I was an anxious dude for like the first 2 years I got out. And then I had to learn like, look, if something goes wrong or off plan, you're not going to die. All you got to do is just kind of work through it. Right. And so
I needed to hear that today. I'm gonna be honest, Mark. Thank you. I needed to hear that today. No, I'm not kidding, man. Last night, I got a message that I did not want to see, and it was in real estate. We had everybody who's listening to this podcast knows the trials and tribulations of my memory care facility. Right, it's taking longer than it should. Being honest, I mean, it's not like ridiculous. I mean, we're gonna reach the finish line. I'm gonna write that hero story. It's gonna be fine, but it is a bear, man. And we had to raise rents on everybody, which we knew that would cause some people to leave. We were just not at market rate. 2 people ended up leaving. It wasn't even really because we raised rents. But 3 people moved in. And I was like, hey, +1 on our census, on our rent roll. Like, we're doing good. Like, it's still. And then last night, turns out somebody passed away, which is just a difficult part of like the dementia.
Sure.
I don't want to call it business, like industry, right? Like it takes a toll on people, and we don't have people ending their lease. We have people like passing away. It's called transitioning in that industry. And anyway, and then one family, they decided to bring, anyways, it's a long story. Point is, then 2 people left. And I was like, okay, here I was. I thought we were ahead one. Now we're behind a couple. And I'm like on this path, and I'm talking to banks. I'm about to like shooting for a refinance. I'm like, this is not helpful. This is a drawback. And I had that, like I called my executive director where I'm like, I'm anxious. I'm calling him. I'm like, so what are we going to do? How are you feel? Like, how are we going to, but I'm like, wait a second. Like, and I'm thinking about plan B, C, D, and F, like E and F, like how to make sure there's so many contingencies. And I'm like, wait a second. Okay. So it's funny. Like I needed to hear that, Mark, today, this morning, after I have all the cortisol in me from last night. Like
that military brain fires off, it's a real thing because it's like, oh, you're going to die. But like when you put it in perspective, it's like, you're not going to die. You're going to work through it just fine. You've planned it out. Like us military people, we plan things out pretty meticulously. Like it's going to be okay. And so those kind of just mind hacks not only helped me succeed in real estate, but as a person, right? Because then I was like, I'm not failing this thing. So I gotta start getting back in shape. I gotta start getting working. I gotta heal my back. I gotta heal all these body parts. I gotta heal my brain, which led me on to this path of plant medicine and kind of like this whole new world of what healing really is. And so what started as just, hey, I'm going to sink my teeth in real estate and just having a scary big thing that I'm not good at. That transformation led me to not only just get good at real estate, but also like improve my life, become a better husband and a better father, right? It just starts snowballing. It starts compounding, right? And I'm not saying like, hey, I've got this figured out. Like I'll be the first one to say like, you're never healed. You're always on the path, right? And so I think this is why I love not pushing, but I love speaking on behalf of real estate to veterans, because the traditional system is so broke. It's, hey, you're an officer, I think you should go to business school and then get a job in corporate America. For a lot of us A types, that's not it. And there's no challenge in that. A lot of us, we get into business, we're like, oh my God, this place is fucked up. We solve all their problems. And then that's it. That's your life. And no one's thankful. There's no purpose behind that. Whereas you go into real estate and that's like, oh my God, this is scary. I don't know anything about this. I suck at it. I'll lose $50,000. But that, just like boot camp, just like OCS, you need that challenge to force yourself towards some path of growth.
You fully own it, right?
Exactly.
Like it is like it's either you're failing or you're succeeding.
Exactly.
There's literally, it's 100% on your shoulders, which is almost liberating. And it's funny you say like real estate, like you calling it a bridge. I'm sure there's other things that people can do that will help them kind of have that snowball of betterment, improvement, and everything else. But I'll tell you, the same thing happened for me. My first rental property was what snowballed me wanting to be better in everything.
Right.
Not like in a obsessive, like, I don't know, Wall Street money grabbing better, but like personally, like better husband, better father, better everything. Like, and it's, I don't know. I always feel like I'm not good enough. And so it's like this complex, I guess, but it's like, but at least dude, I'll tell you, it was the linchpin that gave me purpose, gave me a new identity. It was like this new uniform I put on. And so it's just really cool to hear that you had a similar, that it kind of opened that door for you,
It did,
no pun intended.
And the path keeps teaching you different things. I think every real estate investor kind of hits this point where they know they want to succeed in real estate, because when you give a veteran a goal, they're going to want to achieve it. But you hit this point where you start asking yourself, like, why am I doing this? Like, why do I want money in the first place? And, in a handful of years I've been in this space, I see a lot of real estate investors get stuck here. Is they start earning a lot of money and then it gets hard. And then that's kind of where they get stuck. They leave their job and all they've done is they bought themselves a pay raise, right? They're making a lot of money flipping and wholesaling, but they're still working. And it wasn't till I asked myself, like, why do I want money in the first place? Like, why do I even want freedom? If you would talk to any real estate investor, they're going to say the exact same thing. I want financial freedom. The next question is, cool, bro. What are you going to do with that freedom? Why? And then it's like, well, I kind of want to like chill and I just want to like travel to Europe. And I think I want a Ferrari. Those people usually fail. When you meet the person that's like, I want to retire my mom and dad, or I want to start this nonprofit with the freedom that I've gained, those are the people that succeed. And I always, this is kind of a hot take, but I always tell veterans this is like, your financial freedom is as much of a responsibility as it is a luxury, because you have the ability to make a difference in humanity. That's the bigger things that we're talking about. Like, the military it should be a stepping stone into your next bigger thing. And your next bigger thing should be trying to improve and solve problems that exist within humanity. I think that veterans have that ability. And what's going to get them there, what's going to allow them that freedom, that time and space, is the financial freedom that real estate offers. So like that to me is where if you look at it from a funnel, right? You've got the military, and then you kind of come down, and then it opens back up. On the other side is that's the purpose. And to me, that solves a whole lot of problems. I think there's a veteran suicide epidemic because we don't have a system that gets veterans towards that next bigger thing, right? They go, oh, he's suicidal. He's drinking. Why is he drinking? We should get him to Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, he's anxious. He's suicidal because he's anxious. Why is he anxious? Let's put him on some sort of SSRI. We don't ask what is the core root behind all of that. It's because you've stripped that individual of their purpose.
Do you think it's purpose?
It's 100%
purpose.
Yeah. We have purpose. We're given purpose in the military from day one. You're a Marine. Your purpose is to fight, win battles, make Marines, that kind of stuff like that. And then you strip that overnight, and like we wonder why people struggle so hard.
Yeah. And so do you feel like it's important to find purpose even before you get out?
Ideally, I think that is, there should be an overlap. For a lot of us, for me, I got my DD-214, and it's like, all right, now we're going to figure it out. Highly not recommended, The service, it's not conducive to it because you signed a 4-year contract. The service wants that last year out of you. You're still a warfighter for that last year. That being said, I think it's upon the service member to start looking at that last year of service as kind of the bridge year, right? Like, let me start burning some extra calories to start doing the homework and understanding like an easy kind of exit out of the military. So that way, when I actually have my DD-214, like I've got a plan and a path forward, so I don't have to take the dive that I took personally. There's a little bit of a smoother bridge, from military to civilian.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I will say, so I was in active duty 8.5 years, and I basically turned down, for lack of a better term, doing the full 20 by getting out when I did, because I was kind of like at that almost halfway point. Okay, do I go all the way, or do I get out? And when I switched over to public affairs, that was the moment, for many reasons, that kind of like I already knew back then, 4.5, 5 years before I got out, four-ish years before I got out, that I wasn't going to do 20 years.
Yeah.
So I started slowly but surely building my purpose and passion. And it was weird because I felt even guilty about that. I was like, am I being derelict by having another thing I care about? But I think, hindsight 2020, I think it was good because military isn't the only thing any military member does anyways. Some are obsessed with like golf. Some are obsessed with like, beer and football on the weekends. Some are obsessed with like whatever that is. Like you have something else you do out of the military. Sure. And so I think that I also would almost challenge everybody listening to this. If you're in the military, like the onus is on you as well. Right. And I think because you have to recognize something, the military is a machine and it has an agenda, and that agenda is not to make you a wealthy millionaire. Right. Your job is to serve, like the military is doing a lot for you. For all its faults, the military is doing a lot for you. So the onus is on you to double down, I think, and to find that passion, that purpose, that identity, whatever you want to call it, that's outside of the military. And fortunately and unfortunately, learn how to balance, learn how to integrate, learn how to do both, and start building that off-ramp for yourself, not because you're a quitter, but because you owe it to yourself and your family and to your future.
Yes.
Wow. That was like that rolled off the tongue. Right? I'm like proud of myself. Like
and balance is a hard thing for us to learn, and freedom is a hard thing to learn. We were told from day one, hey, you know what? Be prepared to die in the name of freedom, but no one teaches you how to live free. Right. So that's one of those things you got to take it upon yourself to really define what is freedom. A lot of people think freedom is to be able to like go to steak dinners and buy Ferraris. Freedom is having the time to take advantage of the things in life that are free, mind blowing, balance. There's a concept. we don't know balance in the military, but when we start redefining balance, then we're like, oh, okay, we had it all along. So yeah, it's just those little
You hear
things
about
that
Mark
you gotta
Cuban?
shift.
Oh, sorry, I cut you off. You said, like, can you say that again? Like, you need to learn how to live free. Is that what you said?
Yeah, we need to learn how to. So from day one, we're taught that we should be prepared to die for freedom, but we're never taught to live free. And it turns out that the things that are free in life, that is freedom. Having the time and the
Wow.
space to take advantage of things in life that are free, that is freedom, right? So we need to it's just that whole process of when you get out, you got to just shift your mindset just a little bit. And I think that is the one thing for veterans going into real estate that's missed, is that mindset piece. And I know it's so cliche. You hear the word mindset on Instagram all the time. It's kind of unfortunate because
Yeah.
it really is a mental skill that I know veterans can absorb. It just takes a conscious, deliberate effort to kind of really sink your teeth and learn about it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know why I thought of this when you said that about freedom, but Robert Herjavec, I don't know how to pronounce his name. One of the Shark Tank guys, he was saying that he asked Mark Cuban once, who he was literally just wearing like an old t-shirt and jeans. And he's like, dude, why are you dressed up that way? And he goes, because I can.
I can.
And I was like, boom, dude, like that is freedom right there. Like, and I don't know, gosh, like something else you were saying, like, okay, so you asked the question, why? Like, why do you want financial freedom? Oh, what? One of our awesome team members, Tim Kelly, he loves this exercise. I don't know where he got it, but I call it the 7 layers of why. He asks people why 7 times. It is so awkward and uncomfortable. He did that live at one of our conferences, and it was just like, everybody's like, all right, it's like after the 5th one, you're like, dude. But it's like people kind of like, sometimes you'll see people break because you start questioning, like, well, why the hell am I doing this?
Yes.
Right. And I took a couple of layers just myself, and I realized, so this is one of the things that I love. Okay. I absolutely, this drives the crap out of me. It is. So I would be like, why do you want money? Okay. Like, why do you want to do real estate? Because of money. Okay. Why do you want money? Because I want financial freedom. Okay. Why do you want that? Well, I want to spend time with my family. Why? And that's a tough why to answer. And I was like, well, so me and my wife, we were dating long distance. She was in France. I was in flight school. And so our relationship was very, our meetings were very few and far between, but they were always with travel. And as I grew up, I traveled. So I was like, and something that travel does, and it isn't like the getting in the airplane, doing an Instagram picture and like whatever, first class. It's, now that I have kids, I am obsessed with seeing them experience something for the first time. And my wife, when she immigrated, she landed, dude, in what is the airport called in like by Camp Lejeune?
Is your parked out there in the woods? Yeah.
Dude, she landed at this airport, came out, and she like just breathed in like the humidity. She's just like, where am I? I took her to Food Line.
Yeah.
And she had a culture shock, dude. She just came back from Bordeaux, France, making wine at a vineyard, and I take her to Food Line.
Yeah, like
in New River, it was in Sneed's Ferry, and then I take her to Lorelei's Bar.
Yes.
You've been to that bar.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And she's just, and like the lights are like the solo cups with Christmas lights inside them.
Toby's and like, here's Lorelei's. Yes.
Dude, but every single thing that I like was able to see her eyes getting open to or experience for the first time was a drug. It was a straight up, I was addicted. And then I had kids, and it was the same thing. I say this all the time. Like, there's one memory I'll never forget. Is like my oldest son having real pasta bolognese with Parmesan grated right on top of it in Florence, Italy. And I was just like, his eyes were just like, just lit up, And I was like, that right there. I want that. I want more of whatever that is all the time.
It's funny you bring that up. Like my mentor, Thatch Wynn, right? he said something that stuck with me for the longest time is, at the end of the day, human beings need hope. Why do people want so much financial freedom? And then the answer is like, well, because I just want to spend time with my family. When you're raising your kids, there's hope in that because the future for your kids is bright. Why do people want to start nonprofits? Because there's hope in that. There's hope to save humanity and that little chunk that you're trying to do. That's why people like the Marine Corps. There's hope, despite kind of the trials and the bullshit and the tribulation, there's hope in that. Like I get to go serve a purpose greater than myself. So at the end of the day, if veterans can really nail down like that hope aspect in their why, you're going to be unstoppable, right? But it's where people lose their way. It's they start comparing, like I got to get this many doors, I gotta make this much margin on my deal. You get away from that, and as long as you can stay aligned to your hope, your why you're doing this, if you can have a solid definition of freedom, to me, letting go of control is freedom. Community is freedom. Family is freedom. Balance is freedom, right? If you can start to align all those goals and then understand how real estate enables that, you're unstoppable, man. And veterans are really good at doing that. It just takes a little bit of a mindset shift to kind of get them there.
So, Mark, I feel like, and it's probably my fault, we really dug deep into your story and your mindset and everything, and we haven't touched that much on real estate. So can you give us a snapshot of like after that flip, you're getting mentored by an amazing person and you're like, okay, what was like the series of events? What are the properties you got? And what kind of, successes or failures did you have? Like, is there a snapshot that you can give us, like this happened and this happened in a logical way to help all the listeners know, like, okay, even after losing $50,000 in 18 months of your life, like then this can happen if you keep going.
Yeah. And that's really all it was for me because my real estate career was nothing stellar. Lost 50 grand on the first flip. The second was, like I got this VA loan. Rates were like in the twos at that point. So we just bought a house. Classic house hack. Bought a house at super low rates in Oceanside, California. And, we left it out. That's all we did. And the thing does great. After a couple of years, it's appreciated like 200K. We still have it today. Classic, and that's where it was.
Dude, that's awesome.
And then after that, we come home. So I'm kind of transitioning, trying to find ways to pay the bills and jobs and stuff like that. We buy a primary, a little cosmetic fixer, do a little work on it. We live in it now, and then that's the deal that I'm currently working on is kind of where I got serious. I was like, okay, we've kind of made this slow ramp. Like now it's time to really get serious. And ADUs in Seattle are it, man. Like it is the gold rush. And so, but the laws are very permissive for ADU construction. Well, relatively, right? You still got to go through permits. So I was like, I'm doing that. And so for about 8 months, I was looking at MLS deals, off-market deals, talking to people. And that's kind of for me where like law of attraction really came into like full effect. I actually went under contract in this deal. I was like, oh, I can do an ADU in that. And there's this big tree in the middle. In Seattle zoning, if you got a tree bigger than 24 inches, like you ain't building nothing. So I go and I show this deal to Thatch.
Whoa, no kidding.
Yeah. I waived everything. I waived contingency. I waived my soul. Like I was like, this deal is happening. And I showed this deal to my mentor, Thatch. And he's like, did you not see this tree right here? What are you doing, dude? And I was like, oh shit, I've got 15K EMD on this thing. Like, what should I do? He's like, okay, let me look at it. He and his wife went through that deal on a Friday night and found one unchecked box in the Form 17. They're like, you can get out of it this way. So that to me was like, if I'm going to do this, I need standards. Like I am not doing a deal under 500K margin and period. Right. And that's where kind of the military, like where does military help you? Standards. We know standards, right? So from there, I was like, I'm
okay,
not breaking my standard. And so literally a week later, I found a corner lot, 8,100 square feet, which in Seattle is a unicorn. Bought it, got under contract, and today I'm building 2 ADUs, which are probably going to net me about 600 after all expenses. And I'll just
congrats,
continue,
man.
wash, rinse, and repeat. Now that I know the standard, I've got the team in place. I got the GCs, I got the real estate lawyers, I got the architects. So the team is in place, and so this thing's probably going to get done sometime in February, and we're going to keep rolling. We've got the process down.
So you're flipping this.
No, I'm going to keep these as rentals. At the end of the day, like,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Because you were saying 600K profit, but you're just,
oh,
you're
sorry,
just saying that's
margin
the equity
play.
you created.
Yeah, that's the margin play.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So
you created equity,
created
over
equity.
$500,000 of equity. You're going to probably do a refinance. That's going to, you're going to cash out some of that, I'm assuming.
And just go into the next
rent
one.
Out. The primary and the 2 ADUs are all going to get rented out, and you go on to the next one.
Go on to the next one. Yeah. And so the ADU play is beautiful because, like, for me personally, my number of doors exercise is like 10 doors. I probably need only 2 more deals, maybe even 1. If I got real lucky, 2 more deals, building ADUs to have my number of doors where I'm on the way to the payout phase and financial freedom. So like I'm really invested in the ADU play.
So, okay. I'm looking into building an ADU on top of, so I'm in a studio that is really a 2-car garage that I redid. I can't remember what the reason was, but I think I can't have one ADU on top of the other here in this zoning in St. Petersburg, but I can build one on top of my garage as long as it's a garage, not another ADU, if I remember correctly. So anyways, how much are you, I'm just curious for comparison, how much are ADUs, like above the garage ADUs, costing you in Seattle right now?
In Seattle, it's all about the ARV. They don't appraise that high in Seattle because no one really wants to live above a garage. And then the way the architecture, Seattle's an old city, right? So you see a lot of homes with basements and then just basically sheds on an alley, right? And so you'll find the garage play more in like Southern California where they have the SB9 laws. They call it a junior ADU. So it really depends on the architecture of the city and then the zoning. And then what is the best fit for the ARV? So in Seattle, the best play for the highest ARV is corner lot and alley in the back, because what you can do is you can put basically a full, it's called an ADU, but this thing is really a 3-bed, 2-bath house that sits on the alley. All my ADUs are 3-bed, 2-bath with an attached garage. So if you drive down the street, you're going to look at that like it's a single family house. So that's why it appraises high. And then that's why I can demand, between $3,500 and $4,000 in rent. So it really depends on the city. So like, if you're in St. Petersburg and you find like this is the type of architecture that demands the most rent, like absolutely, that's the way to go. So it just really depends on the city.
Dude, I have so St. Pete's really big. Like a lot of the new construction, automatically they have detached garages and they automatically build the ADU.
Yeah,
on
you
top.
just put it on
Mine,
top.
I'm kind of pissed that I'm pissed that they didn't pop my top. But so somebody on my street, this is crazy. They have a double lot. Both of the lots are like 6,500 square feet. Double lot, corner lot with an alley. And the zoning allows ADUs.
That is the holy grail right there.
I'm trying to negotiate this thing, but so it's fully paid off. Their mortgage used to be $105. I think I told Thatch this on
yeah.
Dude, 105. Their mortgage used to be $105 about in 1966. And it's somewhere in the 500s right now. And I'm just like trying to figure out, because like here's the thing though, Mark, you remember we talked about focus? Like this is not my focus. My focus is multifamily.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like I walk out of my house and I see it and I'm like, it's right there. So I need to figure out what to do with that, because it is too good of a deal. I need to find somebody who does this type of stuff in St. Pete and partner with them or something, because I don't know. I could be like I'm more of a limited partner on this deal, but after I heard you guys talk about ADUs at our conference, I truly believe that it is a fantastic way to do, the BRRRR method in a way that's still profitable these days, to get the high enough rents. I mean, our very own VP of operations, Betty Boyce, she basically hit more than her financial freedom number, thanks to 3 homes with ADUs.
Exactly.
Like, what? She she just like one after another. And next thing you know, in 2.5 years, she's like, or whatever it was, she's like, whoa, I just hit my, I used to run my calculation off of just like, what a turnkey rental or regular, be like, okay, I'm at $300 a month off of this. All right, I'm going to need like 25 of these or whatever it was. Exactly. It's just like, right. And that was still exciting to me, dude. But ultimately I wanted to scale. So I moved to multifamily. Here's another way to scale, you just have to get comfortable with constructions, the zoning, all that kind of stuff. But
nothing veterans can't
like
handle.
anything, you gotta, yeah. Especially after you were like a GC in Iraq and Syria, right?
Yeah, exactly. And ADUs are really good for high, expensive areas like Seattle. And so not only can you cash flow, but the appreciation is there. Seattle historically appreciates, doubles every 7 years, right? So in addition to starting off with margin, if you hold it, right? Because for me, the game is owning and holding rentals. Classic Warren Buffett, just hold. You're going to get that appreciation over 10, 20, 30 years. That's the generational wealth point, right? And so that, for me, that's what the power of ADUs is. Not only you're going to start with margin, but it's treated like its own house. It's assigned its own APN number. So it's going to appreciate just like any other house. And in an expensive market, like you can't beat that, and that's where you're kind of having the best of both worlds of cash flow and appreciation.
That's awesome. Mark, I appreciate you sharing your story because I know for a fact it's going to inspire hundreds, if not thousands of people listening to this. So thank you so much for just going back and forth with me. I think we have a lot of in common, our mindsets. It's really cool meeting more and more people. And thank you for just contributing to our mission by sharing your story. What can people do if they want to reach out to you, if they want to learn about what you're doing? What else do you want to say out to to all the listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. So follow me on Instagram. I'm at Mark T. Brookman. I've just launched the Summit Point Academy, which is really just kind of that mindset shift academy for veterans. It's something that
awesome.
We don't see. We have the traditional transition program where it's like, here, let's help you get a job there, bucko. Let's work on your resume. Summit Point Academy is all about that mindset shift that we just talked about. So you can follow that on Instagram at Summit Point Academy. And then, yeah, just like
Wonderful.
If anyone's got questions, hit me up. Like you, all I want to do is just spread the message. I just want to share my story so that someone feels compelled to share their story. And at the end of the day, those stories can just tell people like, hey, maybe I'm not alone. There's other people doing that. Maybe this real estate thing is something I can sink my teeth into and just kind of get them on that path. I think that's all we're shooting for.
Love it, Mark. Thank you so much. And everybody, you heard it from Mark. Share this episode. If you were impacted by it, if you resonated with it, then kind of pay it forwards, and not to one person, but at least two. Let that spider web grow. Share it to more people. Help more veterans and military members out there. That's the point of our mission. Thank you again, Mark, for coming on here and inspiring everybody. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it, brother.
All right. Take care, man.
Thank
Bye.
you.